Hi there, Earth Nation. This is Amanda with the Activated Earth, and this is Summit 2023. And I am here today with Della, and we are going to talk about nature connection and what it means to her. And I'm going to read her bio to you right now. And she's got some really yummy sounding things in here. So you're going to want to connect with her afterwards. So Della is an ordained priestess, a healer, a Chicano witch, and mentor. She is the author of 10 books, including the Book of Spells, The Magic of Witchcraft, and the forthcoming A Box of Magic, a guided journey to crafting a magical life through witchcraft. Ritual herbalism and spell crafting, which will be available on September 26, 2023. With healing at the forefront of her magic, Jamie is a Reiki massage therapist, a soul collage facilitator, and a teacher of creativity and magical workshops. She creates a seasonal magical wellness kit with organic herbs from Oshala Farm to teach people about ritual herbalism. She writes 2 blogs, Writing the Magic and Homesteading the Hollows. That one sounds very appealing to me. An Herbal Journeys column for witches and Pagan magazine, and offers moon and Sabbat rituals in her free newsletter. You'll be able to hear how to find Jamie online at the end of this. So listen for that later, and it will also be going out in the email when you receive this interview. So Jamie, I'm really happy that you're here today, and I would love it if we could kick off by understanding why you've chosen the title of witch. What does that mean to you?
A witch comes from the word wise, W-I-C-C-E. At most, or at my heart, I'm a wordsmith. So I love to watch how words evolve over time. And this word has always been wise, and it means wise as we follow the cycles of nature. When we look outside and at summer, we decide, look, everything, or we notice everything is blooming, everything is reaching its zenith, its brightest, most boldest point of life effusive. That is a signal for us to bloom where we are planted. There is no flower that has ever been misplanted in nature. We are not misplanted. We are always on our path. And this path of following nature allows, in summer we bloom, in fall we let go, in winter we rest, and in spring we give birth. And if we follow this guidance, then we are aligning ourselves with the collective consciousness of nature, of all the creatures in nature. And that is like stepping into a river, and we can either go with the current, put our boat in and go with the current, or we can try and fight and go upstream and wonder, why is everything always getting knocked out of my hands? Why do I keep losing my balance? Why can't I find my focus? Well, when we go against that energy, that collective energy that is out there always around us, then we don't have as much force or strength behind our intentions and the way we want to live our lives. But when we find that flow and utilize nature as a guide and a friend and a mentor, then that is the wisdom, I believe, in the word witch. It means to live your life in a way that is most wise and finding your personal development. And also then we come to spells, right? Because of course, that's the next question. People go, well, what about spells? And again, coming back to etymology, what does that word mean? It means to spell out a word, to spell out what's important to you, to describe the thing that you want to communicate, that you're trying to communicate. So a spell is essentially a prayer in 3D. We have things in front of us. If maybe you had a cup, and a cup is like the womb space. It holds our intentions in a creative space. That's what the cup represents. And if you had yarrow flowers, which is some of the flowers I have here from our homestead, that is a plant that is a wound healing plant. So maybe you have a cup and yarrow and a quartz crystal, and these 3 things become your third dimensional prayer because of what they represent to you. For somebody else, they might see yarrow as a purifying agent because it extracts the poison from a bee sting. Or they might go with the myth of Achilles and go with the wound healing aspect. So it all depends on what something means to you, One of my favorite ways of describing that is by thinking of It's a Wonderful Life. It's kind of an easy movie a lot of us have seen. So if you think of that scene where Donna Reed is giving a housewarming blessing to that couple that has just moved into their home, and she says, this salt that you will always know flavor, this bread that you will never know hunger, and this wine that you will always know joy, that's a spell. That's an intention that we're spelling out, a dream, a wish, a hope, a prayer. And we just play with these tools to focus our mental magic in the direction we want it to go.
Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
describing it that way. And I had never considered like a spell actually being a three-dimensional prayer. I think that that's a beautiful way to describe it. And some of
Thank
the
you.
the plant medicine that you use when you do that, you talk about getting in touch with the spirit of the plant. What has your experience with connecting with plants in that way?
I have my little yarrow right here. I believe that the plants call us as much as we call them. I do believe in animism, which is the belief that everything is alive with a sentience, a consciousness about it. So, to say that for example, lavender is one of the ones I typically utilize as an example. And I don't like to say use our herbs, because we don't say we use our friends. I wouldn't say, if we were going to go to the store together, I used Amanda to help me decide what outfit to wear. Like, I wouldn't say that, that I asked you, we work together. And I feel like that's the same energy that we need to extend to herbs and flowers and trees. And when we're out in nature, and whether it's farming or for medicine making, for cooking or medicinal or for food, that really paying attention to that plant spirit and recognizing that you're coming to take from it. And when you ask, I believe that consciousness, that life force that is the same that lives in us, that lives in that plant, is going to respond when we speak to it. That's why for centuries, people have sung to the plants while they harvest, letting them know you are going to be recycled into a new use. We had lilac went crazy this year. So we gathered a lot of lilac, and I had a women's moon group here, and we came and we sang to it. So my herbal medicine studies began in my late 20s. I started attending an herbal conference in Northern California, and I would teach about ritual herbalism, which is it's also called green witchcraft. We all are calling new things by new names all the time now.
Yeah.
But essentially, it just means bringing a sacred purpose and a sacred practice to my work with the herbs, and recognizing that these are my allies. And I think putting them in that context of an ally versus something I use or take, it's an ally that I work with. And that I love floral facial steams. That's one of my favorite new things. Is it's this is yarrow is an astringent, so I can put it in a bowl, add boiling water over it, put my head over it, and a towel over myself, just like we might have done with Vicks Vapor Rub,
Right.
if we had a cough, right? And you do that with flowers, and listen to a meditation and sit there for 10 minutes and breathe it in. You start to lose the wrinkles in your forehead. You feel this connection to the plant. I like to imagine the plant in its growing environment, not just as it's chopped up, or, the same thing if you're going to have chamomile tea. Think about what chamomile looks like when it's growing. It's bright, bright, bright yellow center, the beautiful, delicate white petals, and just really making more of a conscious connection when we ask these spirits to heal our bodies and make us whole.
I love your passion around that. It's very inspiring. I'm wondering, have you ever received, when you're connecting and thinking about the plant, and have you ever received additional information from them that isn't something that maybe you've read in a book?
Oh yeah, because I'm also a body worker. So I do massage therapy and Reiki as well. as right. And so I have a calendula plant that or calendula is one of my plant allies that it's really good for the skin.
Mhm.
So it's something I really like to work with, because when people are very tight, when you feel like you're so tight in your body, having that calendula and the massage really helps them open up. And sometimes I'll even get messages, not only from the plant, but from that person's spirit. And I feel like the plant is just is a helping guide for me while I am working with this person and trying to bring them wholeness. And yes, like you'll hear, okay, it's good for the skin. It's good for the elasticity of the skin. And then the plant won't be like, well, I'm also good for elasticity of the mind. I'm
Oh.
also good for elasticity of our emotional
Mhm.
breadth. And it's not just that I believe that what the plants do for us is not just what they physically do for us, but the same thing that they do for us physically, they do for us on that spiritual and emotional level as well. And they'll just tell me, as it relates to that person's body, that they need to open up their arms a bit more. Maybe that's because they're protecting their heart center, so they're not throwing back their arms for life. And the calendula will say, remind them, stand in front of a doorway, pull your arms on the either side of the door frame and push your chest forward. Give your heart an opportunity to feel into the earth first. That was never read. I never read that about calendula. But like you said, it'll come in with its own message specific to the moment, specific to that person and that situation.
Yeah, that's so I'm so happy to hear that. And what I also am hearing you say that is becoming a common thread throughout this summit as it is unfolding is that the healing property that's available from something in the physical is the same on all levels with the mental, emotional, and spiritual as well. Um, do you have an example of maybe an emotional or a spiritual healing that you got to experience or saw somebody else do because of some of your herbal remedies?
Oh, I guess I would go to when we had the new moon ritual that we had last new moon when the lilac was going off. We had 9 women show up. I live on an acre property in the Eastern Sierra, which is by Yosemite National Park.
Okay.
And so we were in the backyard, and in the backyard there was the lilac that was going off, the mullein, the horsetail, onions. There was quite a few plant allies just growing along that we were able to pick. And we went up to this plant, this tree. It was bigger than it was huge, this tree of lilac. And we sang a song that is often sung: the circle is broken, yet the circle is open, yet unbroken. And it is a song about that we are still always connected. So we were singing that to the plant and to the lilac, and the women were able to come up with new reasons that it could heal them.
Mm.
Sitting there with it, did it bring them serenity? Did it bring them strength? And then we started sharing, this is how I'm feeling, this is how I'm feeling. And the idea that we could each experience the same tree, the same plant, but come away with something that was different and unique to ourselves. The young mother that was with us, her 2-year-old daughter was looking for the fairies, was looking for the flights of light and movement that was happening. And then a child who is always wants to be home and needs to be kind of protected a bit more, wanted to take a nap surrounded by the lilac that we had all gathered. A child that didn't used to, she was 2 years old, wanted to always be home, found herself surrounded by the lilac and was peaced and calm enough to take this nap in a way that she never could before, because of that community of women, because of that vibration of healing ourselves, that it could calm a hyper little child, a little toddler, into taking a nap in the middle of the day in a situation that she would never normally do it. And
Yeah.
I feel like that same energy, we think, oh, that's a child, but it's like, but that's our potential, right? Our children, when we're two, we're not thinking of how society is interpreting us, we're just doing what we do. And that's what this child does. And I feel like that's what the plants do, is they bring us to the present moment, not to the moment of how is this going to look or how am I going to explain this later on, but just how am I feeling right now? And can I respond to it in this moment?
It's what it sounds to me like, and what it feels like when I listen to you speak, is that you're actually creating a channel between the plant and yourself, and then also with the group that comes out there with you. So they're actually receiving the vibration of whatever it is that you are honoring in that moment.
I don't know if I'm creating the channel. I feel like I'm more pointing it out.
Yeah.
Like this exists. It's here for you if you want it, and it's also, one of the other things that came to mind was I was raised Christian Zionist. So Christian Zionist Sunday school I went to every day, and that was the beginning of my mind over matter education, that we can see ourselves as whole and we can create miracles in our mind, in our body, in our emotional bodies. And a couple of years ago, my partner is a he's a he works in I always call them Tonka trucks, but they're the bulldozers and whatnot, and they, snow removal is one of his jobs. And so he accidentally dropped a 400-pound snow plow on his toe.
Ouch.
And yeah, and he kind of got it out very quickly, so that the skin was gloved, sorry, from the big toe, and it was crushed. His toe was crushed, and the doctors was just like, we don't know, we have nothing for you, we'll just have to see if it heals. And I'm like, oh, now it's my turn. Now the witch gets to play. The doctors don't know what to do. Oh, I do. And so I got out the calendula because it's good for your skin and circulation. And so I would rub the skin because we needed the skin to stay supple and juicy, so that the circulation could keep going, so that we could get the white blood cells and we could get the healing that his toe needed. So we began with calendula on his foot, and then as we got closer and closer to his toe over a couple of days' time, then we added comfrey. And comfrey is an herb. It's known as knit bone. It heals bones. So every day he was applying his oils and, working around the toe and massaging up to like where, because you want all that energy to go up towards your growing and other places of exit points for your body. For a lymphatic system. And within a month, he went back to the doctor because the doctor said, I don't know, it'll either fall off or you'll keep it. Literally had nothing else for him. The toe is perfect now. The doctor didn't know what to do and or couldn't believe it, and just said, keep doing what you're doing. And what was really neat about that was that my partner no longer second guesses me. He
Excellent.
knows I can heal now, as long as he's, and you have to have that open-mindedness. You can't heal someone who's refusing to be healed, right? Just like you can't help somebody forgive somebody if they're not willing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was another really big incident that was really powerful for me, because I have healed I hardly ever went to doctors. I've always been working with mental magic or focus for positive wholeness and visualization and herbs as my remedies. But I thought, oh my gosh, I've never healed a broken bone, until I did.
That's so amazing. So I would hope that that gives everybody out here who's listening the inspiration to pursue more plant medicine like that. I'm
Yeah.
interested in your seasonal kits.
Oh yeah.
I'm wondering if you would share, what's the difference in the energy with the seasonal herbal kits? What's the purpose around that?
Okay, so since this is going to come out end of August, and we will have our let's see, the sales close essentially at the end of August, where we can accept the last purchase of the seasonal wellness kits. And so what it comes with is we choose, my cousin and I actually, my cousin runs Oshala Farm. It's the largest mom and pop sustainable, regenerative, organic, independent farm in the nation. And so I always believe in working with, just like we talk about working with the freshest ingredients when we cook, the same thing is true with your magic or your medicinal work, or however you're, working with the herbs to shift your perspective. If you needed chamomile to sleep, or maybe to be more childlike enthusiasm, and this idea of calendula that you're strong in your skin, and then comfrey that your structure and your bones are strong, what's important in each season. So for example, for fall is about letting go. So we're going to be choosing 3 different herbs that discuss this idea of how can we let go of what no longer serves us. So in that case, we might work with, sorry, I always have to change my language. We might choose some herbs that are astringents, that are cleansing herbs, right? Because that's what we're doing. We're cleansing ourselves in fall time of the negative thoughts and what weighs us down, just like the trees let go of their leaves so that they can bring their energy to their core self during the quiet of winter. We can follow that same guidance. And so those herbs and the conversation around fall is all about finding that equilibrium, right? So equinox, fall equinox, equa means equal, nox is night. So equinox is equal night and equal day.
Right.
So it's a matter of finding yourself in equal balance, but it's also considered the witch's Thanksgiving. It's really, we have Thanksgiving at the end of November, but what's really being harvested then? Really, the harvesting happens at the harvest full moon. The harvesting is happening in September. And so where can you find your abundance? What is a plant and allies that represent the grandeur and the possibility and the potentiality of our world? And then I include in a little booklet so that there's instructions on how to work with the plants. And it might include just going from making a tea or a ritual bath with herbs, or the facial steams, or maybe even a spell that someone can do about really, I release to the fire what I no longer desire. Like one of my favorite things is to take bay leaves, and you write on bay leaves, because you could write on bay leaves with an indelible marker, like a Sharpie, and you could write your wish, either what you want to release, or I am so abundant in my health and I want to continue that through the winter. Either intention, whichever way you want to go, you write it on a marker, you throw into a fire safe. We have wood burning stoves, so it's easy for me. I throw into fire and it just pops and it explodes with the volatile oils of the bay just explode. And so the herbs that we choose follow the guidance of the season. And then we have, like I said, the booklet that'll explain how to use them, and the freshest herbs. It's what's being harvested. And the reason we use those fresh herbs, it's the same reason that you want fresh ingredients for your food. It's because there's more life force. And if there's more life force, that means there's more medicine and more flavor and more of the plant's spirit. So that's to me why I wanted to do this, because so often I hear people who work with magic, with herbs, and they're like, oh, I just go down to the Botanica and I just get, whatever herbs they have. But those could be so dry. They might even be brown, and how, of course, it's your intention, but you're working with a plant. And if their spirit is more there because their life force is more there, physically more available. That's why I wanted to do this, to help herbalists think of the ritual aspect, to help people who maybe don't know how to get started with herbs. It's been so scared out of us on how to take care of our own health. Even before the pandemic, people were afraid to work with herbs. You feel like you're going to do something wrong. The doctors tell me I can't, or
Right.
whatever it is. And of course, if you have a condition, you absolutely need to double check, because herbs they're a lifestyle. Western medicine is great for diagnoses and for emergency cases. Herbs are a lifestyle. So if
Mm.
the kinesthetic ball is moving and you're really hurting, herbs might not be your only goal. It's complementary. They're complementary. And the more you get to know them, the more you'll have a relationship with them. And then you end up with volunteer plants, because you're like, oh, I always knew I needed basil, but it suddenly came here. They just show up and they guide you. And so many times over and over again, herbalists have told me how there was a friend of mine went to a funeral once, and felt like she was supposed to go on this walk. She went on this walk and she found all this sage, which was her ally. So she got to sit there in her grief and be with the sage because it was calling her to it. So I'm sorry, that was a bit of a long answer. I tend to
No,
wax
that's
on.
exactly what I wanted. I love long answers. They
Oh,
lead to
good.
more
Thank you.
questions. Yeah, and actually, you use the word magic a lot, and I
I
love it.
do.
Spell it with the CK. It's really, I feel like I don't know why, but for me that feels more connected to the reality of magic. And I know I have my belief and my definition of what the magic is. I would love to hear yours.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for your questions. I love your questions. They're great questions. I want to make sure I acknowledge you for the time that you put in to really ask me some thoughtful questions.
Well, great questions come from marvelous content.
Thank you. It's sweet. Oh. Magic with the K. I spell magic with the Magick. The first thing it does is that it's automatically makes us see that it's different, right? So it's not with a C, just the C, because that differentiates it from a card trick or something like
Yeah.
that. So we automatically see that it's really quick, and words are like symbols. I'm sure you've seen that game where there's all kinds of logos for different companies, and you have to which logo is that? Is that the Nike swish? Is that the blah, 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 whatever it is. So we are symbolic. We will read our symbols and our signs, and that's going to connote things to us right away. So the K connotes right away that this is something different. I see the G and the K, the G as earth, grounding, Mother Earth, our mundane existence where we walk every day. And the K is like the sky, or the ideas, or the things that have not yet formed. And we are that. And if you had each, the sky and the earth, as kind of a sphere or a circle, and you cross those over like a Venn diagram where the two circles cross over each other, we are that middle place where the sky meets the earth. We stand on the sky, on the earth. Our head is in the sky, and we are the place where the magic occurs. We are the place where the thoughts and the ideas and the emotions become manifested into physical form. We are the hands and the feet of the gods and the goddesses and the divine source that connects us all.
Oh, you are speaking my language. I've never called this magic, but I see our place, part of our responsibility as human beings, and the unique type of animal that we are, is actually maintaining that connection.
Yes.
It creates magic for everybody. It creates the flow and the ease that we could all be experiencing on the planet right now, if enough of that was happening.
Yes. And what some of us might call serendipity or coincidence, which I like to just call coinciding incidences, but it's essentially that idea that, recently I paid, for example, wanted to update my website. So I sent money to my web designer, and I really wasn't sure where it was coming from. I didn't know. I just felt that strength, that calling. And by that calling of the inner voice or the great spirit, it's more of an urging, like a magnet that's pulling you towards something rather than this screaming, you have to do this thing right away. And I felt this pull, just make the appointment and trust. It wasn't screaming, it was urgent and insistent, but it wasn't fear-based. It was just a calling. So I paid, I made the appointment, and then within hours, I got a message from a friend of mine that said, you know what? I realized I owed you some money. Here's a check. And she sent me a check that covered what I paid 3 times over. 3 times 3 times 3, the magic number of 3,
Yeah.
over and over again. The idea that a divine male and a divine female creates the child, that the thought and the action creates the manifested thing. These are the foundations of what we live upon. And for me, that magic every day is in feeling the voice of nature, of the earth, speaking to us, so that when we're taking a walk and you're looking for insight and the sun bursts through the clouds right at that moment, that you get an idea and you say, that's magic. I'm going to call that magic. Magic is a conversation with nature and the cosmos. Magic is a conversation between our higher spirit, our spirit selves, and all the spirit selves, the land spirits, the animal spirits, the crystals, the herbs, the flora, the fauna, the wind, the river, the ocean, the mountains. People will say, oh, I felt a calling to move to Tennessee or, wherever it might be. Right. And okay, well, what called you? The land spirit called you. Why are there civilizations that build churches on the same hill? Generation after generation after generation, culture after culture after culture, because these places have a unique power of their own accord, and also by what we give it, by what we do on that land, we tend to work with it so that it can become more sacred.
Yeah.
And I feel that we all use that language. I was called to this job. I felt, my home calling me, or the mountains calling me, or the ocean, what we would sometimes say our chi, where we get our energy from, the desert, the whatever that land might be. Well, it's speaking to you. There's a consciousness there. Connect with it, say hello. And I think the hard part is getting over this idea that someone might think we're crazy, right? We start talking to our plants. Well, that has also been proven that when we talk to our plants with positive energy and positive words, they listen to the vibrational language. We can all speak the vibrational language of energy. We can all walk in a room and sense whether it's a happy room or a sad room. So we already speak this language.
Yeah.
We're already there.
Yeah. And you have actually naturally shifted into the last topic of conversation that I really wanted to speak on, which is the land connection that you mentioned in some of our other communication, where you feel really connected to your river. And I'm excited to talk about this with you. And because actually I am from California and I lived there, born and raised, loved where I lived. I was in San Luis Obispo County, for those who know where that is, right by the ocean, in love with it. I was called to move to Kentucky.
Usually goes the other way.
So anyhow, that is where I am. And I would love to have you share what your experience is with your land connection. I am building one here. I was very land connected where I was. And I am building one here, like listening to my land, allowing it to be what it is, and just enhance that so that it can actually be abundant. But you mentioned the deep connection that you have, and I want to hear that story.
Oh yeah, thank you. So yes, I was raised in the elbow, I would say, of a river. So it was it's called the Santa Ana River, and it flows through Orange County, California, so in Southern California.
Yeah.
And my ancestors arrived with the Franciscan fathers to establish the mission system. And of course, there's one in San Luis Obispo.
Yes, there is.
So they established the first one in San Diego and then walked up to Monterey. And as they walked from San Diego, they came to this river, and there was an earthquake that was a huge earthquake, and it dropped them to their knees. And so the earthquake happened on St. Anne's feast day. So St. Anne is Jesus's grandmother. She's a patron saint of grandmothers and horseback riders. And so, which I love. I'm like, oh,
I love
horseback
that.
riding grandmothers. I love that. And so that's how the river got named. And this ancestor, Jose Antonio Yorba, and his father, they asked for a land grant. This is what happened in the late 1800s. The Spanish would come and they colonized California, and they were awarded land grants from the King of Spain. And that began the California bucolic era that we might think of with fandangos and the big mantillas and the big skirts and whatnot. So that was my family having their big parties there by the river in the 1806 is when they got the land grant. So we had moved a little bit away from it, and then we moved back when I was 9. And when you're 9 years old, you have kind of a bridge that you leave childhood and you come to this awareness that there's no Easter Bunny, there's no Santa Claus, mom and dad are people. I thought we were one unit. I don't get that. There's all this individualization that happens. And we moved to this land where my ancestors had lived. They built the first adobe hut right where the river turned a bend and headed towards the ocean. And we had what was 7 cities. And again, I don't believe you can own land. So as I say this, I'm talking contextually.
I
want to make
agree
sure
with
I say that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not saying we actually own the land, but they believe they did. So, but there was just this energy of my family and grandmothers and grandmothers and grandmothers that anywhere I could go, I would feel like I had been there before. And I feel like if you could pass along straight hair and brown eyes, or curly hair and hazel eyes, we can pass our DNA memory as well. And so I would have these flashbacks of rodeos and fandangos as I'm walking along, because I had a nana who was a psychic tarot reader. She would say, well, honey, you've got that. She was from the South. You've got that porch light on, and all them spirits, they just are listening. They see that you're listening. So they come down and talk to you. And I'm like, but I'm trying to sleep and I'm only 8 and 9. They got to stop talking to me. But I started realizing that I could walk. I started exploring, and I could go to different places and feel energy. I could feel, oh, here a battle was fought. Oh, this is where the women would come and wash their clothes. This is where we took naps under the olive trees. And I could feel the memory of my ancestors, but also the land, because it was a combination of the two working together. It wasn't just the people, it was also the land spirit offering that shade, that breeze, the sound of the river, the steelhead fish that were in it, that was their sustenance. And so growing up with this otherworldly awareness of 10 generations of stories in my head, of experiences of living on the land and beyond, I kept looking for what I believed to be a native grandmother. And I kept looking and looking and looking, and it was horribly, I don't even know what to call it. I could call it a lot of judgmental names, but I was going to the Native American offices asking, looking for birth and death certificates, because before ancestry.com, before any of that. And it was, so all they would say to me is, you have the Spanish blood that killed 90% of our population, but you're looking for the one grandmother that might exist. I'm all, Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm doing. And it turned out after a really amazing trip to Spain to walk El Camino this last spring.
Mhm.
I visited this church of this grandmother that felt like she kept calling me. She was literally probably one of the last daughters of the Dons. She was born in the 1880s. And no, I'm sorry. She was born in 1831. And so she would have been a teenager during the Mexican-American War. And I felt her so strong. Well, it turns out her mother came from Mexico, and that's where my mother's line, my maternal line goes all the way to Mexico for 7,000 years. So I was feeling this indigenous call.
Yeah.
I was feeling this need to be with the land spirits, even though I wasn't California native, I was
Yeah.
Mexican native. And that's why I call myself a Chicana witch, or Chicana witch, or however we're going to pronounce it, because I want to include and pay respects to those women who went back so far and so long. And I feel so Mexican, even though I'm the first to pass for white in my family, which is also a very interesting position to be in, when you almost wish that you could have some of that. I don't know, because no one could ever really wish to be judged for darker skin, but it's a weird thing. It's almost like a survivor's guilt kind of a thing, to be the
Yeah.
first to pass, the first to have the opportunities, and to try to do their best to make the most out of it because of the sacrifices that your ancestors made to walk from Jalisco, Mexico to California.
Yeah. I I'm feeling like called again to add something here that's I feel like um it's a good point to make right now in this with this particular conversation. And one of my favorite books in the world is Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer.
Yes.
And there's a chapter in there, I believe it is about the plantain, that
Okay.
wild plantain that grows. It is not indigenous to North America. It was brought by all of the people that came here and took over the land. And this plant has been embraced by the natives of this land because of its power and how it didn't take over. It grows, but it doesn't take over like a vining plant might.
Mhm.
It doesn't run rampant, and it has all these amazing healing properties. And she talks about how you get to be indigenous no matter who you are when you come in connection and cooperation, and
Mhm.
with that nature connection, that respect with nature, which I really loved hearing that message. And I feel like you don't have to have survivor's guilt. You get to be indigenous.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it really is powerful coming from an indigenous woman, right?
Yes.
It's helpful that Robin says it.
Yes.
It's really empowering. And I love that we have plantain growing all over the homestead that we have in the Mendocino forest. And to me, when I get to know a new plant, I already have a relationship with comfrey. But it's different when you grow it. And
Mhm.
I was growing some borage, and it's different when you grow it versus when you take it in the pill for the borage oil and the plantain. And I sit when I see a new plant like that, I like to sit with it and say, tell me about yourself. And what I like to do is observe them, right? Like you said, it's not taking over like mint or any
Right,
of the
right.
plants that are like, I'm here. My rhizomes are everywhere. It just pops up every once in a while. And it's so kid friendly. You can chew a plantain, you cut yourself, you chew a plantain leaf, you add your saliva, which is part of your medicine. Back to what you're saying, we can all be healers, we can all be indigenous, as long as we come in with that sense of cooperation and working together, working with each other versus any kind of dominance. That's not the intention. The dominance is not the intention. The cooperation and wholeness and connectivity is the intention.
Yeah.
And getting to know what each ally gives us and what it can do for us in particular. So getting to know them, is these plants, and the ones that are indigenous, the ones that are invasive, the ones and the river bends and the different places that we see. I just, there's many opportunities to connect and to listen to that wisdom that's always being given to us in nature, and to apply it to our lives, especially when we have that abundance. We had that abundance. I keep mentioning of the lilac. We had abundance of lilac this summer. And what is that but beauty and peace and serenity and strength? And I felt like we had a very hard winter. We had 10 back-to-back blizzards. And so to have a plant like that give us such beauty after such hardship, and to recognize it as a message versus just going, oh, look, there's a lot of lilac. Oh, well, why not see the magic?
Yeah.
Why not see the miracle? It makes life so much more interesting to consider how many allies we have, and that we belong to this earth and not part of some people say, oh, humans are, like a wart on the earth. I don't believe that. I believe that we belong here,
Mhm.
and that we belong wherever we are called, and
Yeah.
finding that place where we can contribute is important. So important.
Yeah, your message is so wonderful, beautiful, and I love it that I have discovered you as a resource for different types of herbal medicine. How can everybody who is listening here contact you if they would like to get in touch?
Well, I am at my website is jamiedella.com, and that's JAMIE, Della, as in dog or diva, whichever way you want to go, the diva dog. Because people don't might think it's Bella, but it's Della of the Jamie Della, DELLA.com. And on Instagram and TikTok, Jamie Della Writes, also Facebook. And I have a new book coming out in September, and there's really amazing bonus features that are going to be available for all pre-orders. My book is called A Box of Magic, a guided journey to crafting a magical life through witchcraft, ritual herbalism, and spell crafting. And it's a weaving together of the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell's hero's journey of our uh the story that we all take to embark on an adventure, find our allies, a mentor, go through some dark times, and learn a lot about ourselves, and then come back with what's called the goddess gift, which is basically our own holy grail, our own inner chalice of personal wisdom that we hold in our heart, in our womb space, in our gut, through our fingers. And it's the story of me meeting with my mentor and weaving in all these lessons of the hero's journey with one-on-one guidance of how to apply and live that magic every day, versus having it be something that's just tucked away, that happens on a full moon or a new moon, or happens on a Halloween. No, it can happen every time you step outside. You can listen to what messages the nature is giving you at all times.
Yeah, and I feel like that is a perfect sentence to finish on. Thank you so much for participating. This has just been a really joyful conversation for me. I really, really loved it.
Me too. I'm so grateful that you asked me. I am such an activist for our earth, for our waters, and for each other. I for humanity. I am holding on to our human spirit in the belief that we will keep doing better and getting better at living on this earth as one member of a community.
Excellent. All right, everybody. If you didn't catch all that information that she left on how to reach her, or everything about her book, it's going to be in the email when this interview goes out. So look for those links. Jamie, once again, thank you so much for being with me today. And everybody who's watching, I'm sure they are equally grateful. So, Earth Nation, I'm going to say goodbye for now, but not forever. That's my new mantra. Goodbye, for now, but not forever.